Hello everybody, it is Stefan Joubert from the Stefan Joubert Guitar Academy, and in this little video I'm going to speak to you about jazz and about learning jazz guitar as a beginner or intermediate guitarist. A lot of my students come from a rock background, and then after a while they exhaust the pentatonic realm and then it's time to move into the jazz realm. Most of them still love rock with a passion, but they also want to explore some other styles, and they realize that with jazz, in a sense, there's just so much more that can be done from a harmonic and melodic point of view. Not that rock music is not interesting. I adore rock and metal and blues. But with jazz, we can sometimes go deeper into certain things, and we can take a look at chord changes. We can take a look at chord movements. We can take a look at manipulating certain pitches in order to get certain results. Of course, the same can be done in rock. The same can be done in metal or blues. And those can also be fused with other styles. But what I have seen is that a lot of my students are very interested in finding out how to get into some jazz playing, just to add another string to their bow. And the best way to do this would be for you to have an understanding of the 2-5-1 progression and just have an understanding of swing. So if you're just starting out with your guitar journey in jazz, what I would recommend is, number one, start listening to a lot of jazz. When I went to study jazz under the master guitarist Johnny Ferry, one of the first things I did in my first year at university was to actually get rid of all other styles, and I just listened to jazz for a full year. I specifically did that in order to train my ear to what jazz sounds like, because when you come from a rock and classical background, you're so used to non-swing styles that it takes a while for you to get into the swing style. So that's one of the things I would recommend if you want to get into jazz, is to listen to a lot of jazz. This is not going to take away your passion for rock or metal or blues. I'm not suggesting that you replace it. I'm also not one of those jazz guitarists who believes that one is superior because you play jazz. I remember speaking to a lot of my professors, and they always seem to think that all the other stuff is just commercial. The only true music is jazz or classical, and I'm not a believer in that. I believe that all styles is wonderful. I also believe that even a commercial style is wonderful. I believe all music is wonderful. I'm open to all styles of music. Doesn't matter, even if it's country music, if it's Indian music, even if it's a music that I haven't heard of before, some sort of a tribal music. I love music, and I'm open to all styles. So I'm not against, rock music per se, or against metal music, and I don't believe that a jazz player is a superior musician to a good rock player. Okay, so after that little speech, let us get into the guitar and let us just take a look at the 2-5-1 progression. So, we're going to do it in the key of C. In C major, we have the following degrees, or the following notes. So we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We all know that scale, consisting out of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. By the way, that's a formula you should learn. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. 2 tones, semitone, 3 tones, semitone. That's the construction of the major scale. So what we have in a 2-5-1 in the key of C major would be the second chord would be a D minor. So that's the first. There's our D. And it's a D minor, and we extend it to the 7th, so we've got D minor 7th. And I can just play it in this way without a 5th, so you can hear it. That's the 2 part of the 2-5-1 progression. Let me go back a little bit. Why the 2-5-1 progression? Basically, in jazz music, the way it works is a song would typically start, or any kind of music, you would start with the home key. You would move away from the home, you would go to the dominant, and you would resolve back to the tonic, or the home key. So what we have is we've got 2, that's away from home. From 2, so that's usually the subdominant function. From the 2 we move to the 5. The 5 is the dominant function, and from the dominant 5 we move back to the 1, which is the tonic. So we've got the subdominant, dominant, tonic function. Subdominant can also be a 4, so also a 4-5-1 is the same as a 2-5-1 in a certain way. So this is just a basic way of how the chords move. If you analyze jazz standards, you're going to see them move in the cycle of fourths. So even in the key of C major, if we take our 1-4-7-3-6-2-5-1 progression, we have 1 that is C major 7. We've got 4 that's F major 7. We've got 7 that's B minor 7 flat 5. We've got 3 that's E minor 7. We've got 6 that's A minor 7. We've got 2 that's D minor 7. So that's the D, the 2 that goes to the 5. G dominant 7th goes back to the 1, which is C major 7. But we're going to take a look now through the 1 4 7 3 6 2 5 1 progression, just at the 2 5 1 part. You'll note when I say 1 4 7 3 6 2 5 1 at the end. 2 5 1, that's the underlying harmony and how that cycle goes. Okay, so we know that in the key of C, C, D, 1, 2, the 2 is D, so we know D minor. But what is the 5? C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or we can go 1, 7, 6, 5 if we go backwards, but let's not go there just yet. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the G. So the 5 chord is a G, and it's a dominant 7th chord. Sounds like this. By the way, if you play jazz guitar, don't play your voicing like this. There's lots of doublings in that chord. So that's great for rock and pop, but in jazz, I would generally recommend playing either that, playing just that, or just playing that, or just that, or just that. There are different versions of that, but, you know, I would play the essential notes. Don't put lots of doublings into your dominant 7th. It doesn't sound great. So there's our 5 chord, and we can hear this tension there. The 5 is where the fireworks happen. And that resolves back to the 1 chord, which is the C major 7th, or the C major. Let me just take you back a little step. So we go back to the 2, which is a D minor. And I'm just going to play basically the triad. So you've got D, F, A for the D minor 7th. Going to the 5 chord, G. We've got G, B, D, G. Okay, and the C major. And I'll just play again the major. So you've got C, E, G, C, E, G. That's just the basic arpeggio of the triads. Now I'll take it to the 7th. So in the case of D, you've got D, F, A, C. In case of G, G, B, D, F. And in the case of C, you've got C, E, G, B. So basically, that is the 2-5-1 progression. That's where you should start. You should start by thinking about it and analyzing. And now we're going to talk about guide tones. What do we have? We've got a bass D for the 2 chord. We've got a bass G for the 5 chord. We've got a bass C for the 1 chord. So we've got a D, G, and a C. So it's 2, 5, 1. That's what the bass player would play, maybe with a variation, of course. So the bass player is going to play a variation with a walking bass or something on that. But we basically have our 2, 5, 1. These are the root notes. D, G, C. Then the most important thing you can study is the guide tones. The guide tones in the case of 2 in the D minor is a flattened 3rd and a flattened 7th. So with D, our flat 3rd is an F, our flat 7th is a C. So if I just play those 2 notes together, which is an F and a C, that's the guide tone. Forms a perfect 5th, by the way. If I invert it, it's going to be a perfect 4th. So it's a perfect 5th, and the bass player would be playing that. So basically, the point I'm trying to make is if you just play those 2 chords, you have those 2 notes, you have all the essence of the entire chord. Because the minor 7th chord consists out of a root, a flat 3, a 5th, and a flat 7th. We are omitting the root, we're omitting the 5th, and we're just playing the flattened 3rd and the flattened 7th. That gives us the essential function of that chord. Then when we go to the 5th chord, which is a G dominant 7th chord, again, we're going to omit the 1st and the 5th. So we have a root, a 3rd, a 5th, and a flat 7th. We're going to play the 3rd and the flat 7th together. That's the guide tone. We still create the tritone where all the tension lies. It sounds like this. You can hear there's a lot of tension. In classical music, that will get resolved like this. But let's get to jazz. In jazz, instead of doing that, it does this. It leaves you hanging. Jazz is like when I was younger, I said jazz went nowhere. I didn't really understand jazz. But jazz, in a sense, it does go nowhere. It doesn't resolve. It's not like... That's really like classical music. And classical music, especially, not the romantic time, but if we think more about the German classical music, that's more like... There's more a finality to the result. Of course, if we talk about Ravel or Debussy, you know, you don't hear that in every piece of Ravel or Debussy. Not at all. You might hear more things like this. Dream-like things. Okay, so let us get back to the 5 chord. So the guide tone, like we said, is the tritone. The F and the B. The F and the B, which is the 3rd and the flat 7th. It can be F and B, it can be B and F. The direction doesn't matter. The bass player would be playing this one. And then, for the C major 7, the same thing. We've got a root, we've got a 3rd, we've got a 5th, and a major 7th. We omit the root, we omit the 5th. So the power chord, that's gone. It's the other 2 that remains. And that's interesting, a 5th as well. We have a 5th and a 5th. What I'm saying is we've got C to G is a 5th, which is the root to the 5th. And the E to B, which is the 3rd to the 7th, that's also a 5th. That's why this chord is stack of 5ths. Beautiful C major voicing, right? You can play it over there, you can play it over here. Just absolutely stunning. So basically we have the 3rd and the 7th, which is the guide tone. So altogether, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 5, 1. So that's the first step as a beginner. Just get to know your 2, 5, 1s with the guide tones. And I'll just play it with the bass for you now to hear. So you get the idea of how the movement works. You basically have your 2, and then you have your 5, and then you've got your 1. If you remove the bass from that, you have your 2, you've got your 5, and you've got your 1. Anybody can play these notes. It's just so simple. It's a perfect 5th. It's a, in this case, F to B, it's an augmented 4th, and another perfect 5th. So that's basically how the guide tones work. And once you've got that, then when you play, let's say, the lead part, the lead is simply an outline of the harmony. The 6th chord often comes into play as well. Because the 6 leads back to the 2. So you often have a 2, 5, 1, 6. But we'll just stick with the 2, 5, 1 for now. So what's the first step? Well, I would just say, get to know your guide tones. 2, 5, 1. So basically play it over there. Play it with the bass and without. And you could also play it up there. Just to get to know it. And then when you do a sort of accompaniment section, you can just do. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you play that against the walking bass, that's going to be fantastic. basically the essence of the 2-5-1 progression. Once again, thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope that you've picked up some tips. What I would recommend you do is just to take some time out and listen to a lot of jazz, and I would like you to also take time out to just analyze it. You know, one of the things you need to understand is a 2-5-1 progression in any key starts with a 2. I know it's simple, but a lot of people confuse that. So if we would say the key of A major, that doesn't mean the first chord is A minor, because it's a 2 chord of A major, so it means the first chord is going to be a B minor 7th. The 5th chord is an E dominant 7th, and the first chord is an A major 7th. Another thing I'd like you to do is to go through the cycle of fifths and work through the cycle of fifths. In the description below, I've attached a link to one of my websites, which is the London Guitar Institute. There is a cycle of fifths download there that you can just download, and you can just print it out and put it on your wall or put it where you practice. That's something you can work from. Go through the entire cycle of fifths and just memorize it, and then randomly ask yourself, okay, if I'm in the key of, for example, the key of D major, what is my 2-5-1 there? If I'm in the key of E flat major, what is the 2-5-1 there? And then you need to be able to answer that very quickly. You need to be able to say, I've got my F minor 7, I've got my B flat dominant 7th going to the E flat major 7th. So work on the 2-5-1s throughout all 12 keys. Do it both through the cycle as well as in a random fashion. That's the first step to getting to know jazz, in addition to listening to jazz. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to listen to me. As always, I love to spend a bit of time with you, and thank you. Please feel free to subscribe. Leave some comments for me. I always welcome comments. Tell me something about the 2-5-1. Tell me what you like about the 2-5-1, or if there's any other video you'd like me to make a topic on. Thank you once again, and have a fantastic day. Goodbye.